Co-pilot RDI features in the MA app. Real-time insights, AI-generated highlights.
sempre vincere. Amo gelato notte, scoop magnum et rineo, pizza magna mi piace et sapore ferro. Amici veni, cantamus hodie, risus plenus sit, felix animus. Subus sole vivo, resuscitam doceo, pasta mihi gaudium, infelici corde. Salvone dico vale, da piscis ridet necu, lore mixum docere, risu vinci latine. O amici veni, cantamus hodie, risus plenus sit, felix animus. Amo gelato nocte, scup magnum et rideo, pizza magna mihi placet et sapore ferro. O amici veni, cantamus hodie, risus plenus sit, felix animus. Sub sole vivo, risu vitam doceo, pasta mihi gaudium, infelici corde. Salvone dico, risu vitam doceo, pasta mihi gaudium, infelici corde. Salvone dico vale, a piscis ridet mecu, lore mixum docere, risu vinci latine. O amici veni, cantamus hodie, risus plenus sit, felix animus.
He would be so scared to see me.
Everybody thinks we was doing this shit, doxing motherfuckers. Nah, they came at us first.
I got a fire raging in my front yard.
Oh, why did you set your front yard on fire? Are you drinking anything?
Slacking off the podcast. Fuck your teams, our boss. Because those authorities. Slacking off the podcast. Fuck your team, dog balls. You call them sports authorities.
Slacking off the podcast.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Smacking Off the Podcast.
What's going on?
Dad?
Not much. How's it going?
Everybody?
Hello. Sounds like we got Ed with us tonight. Are you feeling better, Ed?
Yes.
Yes. So, Doug, is there plenty of excitement going on your way in Alabama?
I mean, about as much as I could hope for in a mid-May.
Mid-May. Everything's building. The tension, the excitement. It is just, just a few more months to college football, guys. Has anybody else joined us? Oh, yeah, I can't wait, he says. Ed, elaborate on your preparations for the excitement.
Well, all my Michigan jerseys will be cleaned and folded and pressed and everything. And I think I'm going to do the DraftKings $15 million contest. And I'm going to do some other fantasy football stuff. I got some good books on the subject. It's very interesting. So see what happens.
Hell yeah. I'm excited too because I think, guys, that Kentucky's going to have its worst college football season since the COVID season. And we're going to be crushed utterly. It's going to be a truly traditional thing that Kentucky fans are used to.
Is this going to be the one that gets them?
That gets Stoops fired? Yeah, because the fact that the cupboard's bare. I just don't know how to say it, Doug. Even if he coached well, the cupboard is bare.
All right, so we're not totally devoid of stories, and I'm pretty sure that Jason has some information on this. Seems that Trump has tapped Nick Saban as what, Jason?
I guess you could call him. Sorry, guys, I kind of got a little thrown off because my OBS is wanting to act up right now as I was trying to do the multi-stream on TikTok, and it's been a pain in the ass. But I guess you would consider him more of like the czar of college football reform. I guess is probably the best way to put it. And I'm sure that we will get a little bit more into this when we get into maybe the conversation about the proposed 16-team format that could be coming to us. And I've got plenty of thoughts on that. So I won't empty the clip as we're 3 minutes into this podcast. But technically, it's one of the things where when Trump came down to the University of Alabama, and Nick Saban happened to be giving a speech there as well at the graduation. And apparently there was a conversation that was had, which I do agree that there needs to – I wouldn't as far as say like regulations, stipulations, but we've got to have a lot of guardrails. And if we're going to try to put all of the toothpaste back into the tube, it's going to be – a fruitless effort because in 1995 probably, but in 2025 it's going to be very, very hard to put all the toothpaste back in the tube. Even though they're going to try to put as much back in as they can, there's just no way possible that's going to happen.
Now, I see that Sean has joined us. Sean, would you like to chime in on this? I've got something to say, but I want to hear what you got.
No, go ahead, Bob.
So here's the only way I believe to solve the NIL legally is to have another court case that demonstrates that the pay the players that you're getting are not directly the result of NIL. In other words, the intent, it'll say that a court case that would say that the intent of NIL was for players to get played by their name, their image and likeness, such as being in the college football game, such as being a spokesman for Golden Flake potato chips, such as Lonnie's barbecue or whatever it is, the car dealer or whatever.
Jerseys.
Yeah, the jerseys, any merchandise that's sold, anytime their face is used on any kind of sports card or promotional event that makes the university money, right? And or McDonald's. It could go you could go as deep as McDonald made a poster of University of Kentucky men's basketball every year that's highly coveted, and they give them away. They got to stack that thick, and they're theirs when they go away. Well, they don't technically make anything off from them, but it causes you to go in McDonald's because otherwise I wouldn't go in McDonald's. I don't care for McDonald's, right? So I'm going in there just to get my poster of the Kentucky Wildcats for the 2026 season or whatever it is. And so anyway, so they should make a cut of that. But as far as getting outright paid, I believe it's outside the spirit of the NIL case, and legally, that's how you stop it.
But that's got to be. I think that's got to be a school that brings that case. A player's not going to, because they could potentially lose in that ruling.
Well, Arkansas is already trying to go after some money from Madani Amaliava, which we talked about it the last time that we were on the air about what the ramifications of that and how I am probably, along with a lot of sports fans and a lot of those in sports media, are probably going to be keeping an eye on that to see how that goes. And yeah, you're right, Bob. I think the intent was that Bo Nix could go and get an endorsement from the local Milo's here, which is very popular in Alabama, especially around the Birmingham area. Very popular place. That was one of his first NIL deals. And that was the spirit. That was the intention of it, to where Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams, or any Alabama player can go and endorse Dreamland Barbecue in Tuscaloosa. Like that was the spirit of it. But again, and as I've said before, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, a parakeet, you name it. But when there started becoming these slush funds of NIL collectives, it kind of muddied the waters and made everything a little bit out of control, because I understand the intent behind it, but it's also had some damning consequences to the point where it spiraled out of control. It was the wild, wild west until Tennessee finally just went to Nico Iamaleava. It's like, oh, you want $4 million? Okay, good luck getting it somewhere else.
But isn't that Arkansas case, at least in part, about non-performance of services, which sounds like that's pretty important?
Well, it's more of like, it's almost kind of like a buyout money. That's what it's basically. They're trying to recoup some of the NIL money that they initially got, which he hasn't seen the field in one game yet. And they're like, okay, well, we got to get some of this money back because we invested in this guy and now he's over at UCLA. So I understand the premise of why they are doing it.
But it would cut both ways legally. Even if Arkansas wins the case, the players can also say that they have cases that say there was breach of contract, and that would open up precedent for the players to get their breach of contract solved as well. So it would cut both ways.
But yes, you're right, and I don't think we don't have any legal scholars. I don't claim to be one. I just do by armchair quarterback, I guess you could say. But yeah, you're right. That's another question, to the point where, okay, if you're trying to recoup this money, is that a breach of a contract? Which again, how concrete or how much standing legally do these contracts have? Do they have any legal standing, or are they just basically an IOU on a napkin that you just write down and put it to the side? That's part of the questions that we've still got to figure out, because we don't know. Like, you get told one thing, something else happens, and you get told another thing, and then something else happens. You're almost being pulled in different directions of trying to figure out just exactly what the hell's going on.
Now, wouldn't a contract dispute where the contract was made legal at that point, it would also, in my opinion, become evidence that the spirit of NIL was violated in terms of the original court case, and in a case to align college football with the original court case, it would be evidence that now there's contracts and there's direct playing of players instead of just their name, image, and likeness. Now, Doug, I got to say, man, I'm curious how you feel about this. You're one of the most reasonable people I know. That's why I love you. So, what's your thoughts on whether or not NIL is something that can be broken up with over legal contracts?
Oh, I mean, this is going to play out how it's going to play out, and it really don't matter how I think. I really don't think they should ever went down this road to begin with, but it's out and it's not going back, and it's definitely going to have to be sorted out. And I guess that's what Nick Saban's supposed to do.
But the other thing too is that okay, Saban and Trump have talked. Tommy Tuberville has been on record in the public talking about something needing to get done. But with this administration, a couple of questions that I have are, number one, how far are you going to try to pull the NIL back? Also, are you going to give the NCAA any teeth? Because for the last, let's say 2 decades, the NCAA has had no teeth whatsoever. They've had no subpoena power to be able to enforce investigations, especially with the big schools. Now, they can go and throw the hammer at Cleveland State and give them the death penalty. But when it comes to Michigan, North Carolina, and all those, they got to battle lawyers. And that's the reason.
But if the NCAA did in fact have teeth, they'd never put them back in their mouth when they took them out at night. So I mean,
but that's another question that I have too. Is okay, will federal lawmakers give the NCAA teeth? And then the question is, will it be? This is going to be the ultimate question, and it's going to be. I'm going to throw it out here multiple times. Will it hold up in court? Will any proposed legislation that passes through the Congress, that passes through the Senate, and gets signed by President Trump, is it going to stand up in court?
Well, we've all acknowledged that none of us on the show are attorneys.
No,
I don't pretend to know what the scope of the Arkansas case is. So I don't know if anything is going to change significantly unless a case goes before the court that has a wide enough scope to make a big difference. I don't know that if the money is going to get pulled back. I see that whenever a change comes, it's just going to be different.
So didn't the Big Ten and the SEC form an alliance? And isn't the purpose of this eventually is basically to phase the NCAA out of at least big time college football?
It seems to be that way.
So I think there's going to be a battle there too, because I really don't think the Big and the SEC has any intentions of the NCAA going back to 90s form.
Again, but the alliance has not yet put its focus on enforcement of anything.
No.
This is for right now. It's about money and power.
Yep.
But in the end, it'll trickle down to that too, because you can't control all the money and power if you can't control the enforcement.
And I blame Mark Emmert for that. I blame.
When the college football czar might have the opportunity to have it explicitly explain who has what power or where, that's an interesting aspect of it.
Yeah, and again, it's almost like a fork in the road. Do you go down the road of a college football commissioner, college football czar, Do you start delving now into collective bargaining agreements with universities, or do you go down the level, or do you go down the path of federal regulation? Like there are so many ways that this could go, and I've usually been pretty good about projecting playoff teams and where they'll go and that kind of thing. This kind of thing right here is a whole different animal for me, and it can go in so many directions because there's so much that needs to be done in regards to this to just get a handle on it.
Now, what's interesting for me, and I'd love you, Sean, I also love you to chime in on this one, is do you think that the bigger teams will try to struggle to hold all the power, or will there be some kind of, since money is involved now, will there be some kind of effort to level the teams out the way that kind of the NFL draft works or something of that nature?
Well, without having a draft, I don't see how you can. You know, it's you can't force a high school player to go to a particular school to even out the playing field. So,
and the smaller schools don't have the money to compete with the big boys, and I don't see a revenue sharing system that's equitable all across the board. I don't think the big boys are ever going to go for that.
Yeah, I think money's the only way to even it out. So like you say, Sean, you can't force players to go anywhere. But if the schools share like right now they share the TV contract pretty much equally, right? You'd think out of that they could do something to get some kind of parity. Of course, there's a lot of tradition in college football that's hard to overcome, right? Even if you tell me I'm going to get the same money in Kentucky that I would get at Texas, you're more likely to go to Texas to play football. In my opinion.
Yeah,
well,
it's a tough answer. It's tough to answer that question, Bob. I don't really see how you can disperse the talent so that it's just kind of going to be what it's going to be. Other than if said school offers more money than other said school, and that's
That's the thing. We don't have answers. All we have is guesses in theory.
Yeah.
At this point, that's all we have. I mean, you sit here like talking sports, like we know sports, but in this moment, we could just be honest with everybody and just say, listen, everything's a guessing game at this point. We can have theories, we can have solutions, we can throw every solution out there and debate every single one of them of which one's right and which one's wrong. But in the end, we have no idea where this is going to go.
I don't think we'll see anything that looks like a final resolution for 3 to 5 years.
I agree with you, Ed.
That's generous. That's generous.
Yeah, that's very generous, Ed.
I think it's going to be longer.
It's going to drag out. Personally.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot longer because we talk about the big boys, and how they're pulling their weight. And I'm talking about the SEC and the Big Ten because they're already trying to get half of the playoff spots in this new proposed college football playoff. So they're trying to shift their weight. And I understand when you're Greg Sankey and you're Tony Petitti. If I said that right, I almost said Petitti, but Petitti. Then you're going to try to do what's best for business. I don't fault them. For that. But in the end, and we'll get into once we get into this proposed new playoff format, that what's best for business for them may not be best in business in general.
Yeah, so the playoff format is very much related to this, Jason. It's undeniable. And the whole interesting thing for me in the future is it going to get to where there's only like 20 teams that have a chance anyway there is, and we see the same playoffs year after year? How many times are they going to expand it? Is it going to become like the NCAA tournament? I mean, the controversy of college football, guys, is what makes it interesting. And what we're really trying to do here is create another news cycle that stays current all the time for college football, right? So instead of it dying in January or February and everybody's waiting for the spring game and then the world is dead, right? The networks like ESPN, Fox, and so forth, even us, right? It becomes more interesting for us and our fans when something's actually going on. So the constant controversy that to Ed's and Sean's and your point could go on for a decade over this, right? It is really a way to generate news like a hot stove for college football and to keep it relevant in people's minds. So because we need something more than Belichick's girlfriend.
Yeah, it's great job security for me. I'm not going to lie to you. It's great job security. But the frustrating thing about it, and going to the playoff, I'll say that. So if you would have told me that there needed to be a 16-team playoff 10 to 15 years ago, I would have told you to put the crack pipe down. Put the crack pipe down. But given the way that everything has changed in the landscape of college football, it's a lot more fitting. I don't have a problem with it expanding to 16 teams because as good as the 12-team format was, it definitely did have its flaws, like the bye weeks for the Arizona State, Boise States of the world. And I'll get to Notre Dame here in a minute because I'm actually going to defend him again in this concept. But they're talking about, well, the bye week may have been a disadvantage for Boise State and Arizona State, when in reality, you could have just said, well, maybe Boise State and Arizona State should have been played in the first round, and Penn State and Oregon, I should say, probably would have been a little bit more worthy of that, or Penn State, Ohio State.
But that's a shit argument, I think, about the bye, because when you have less depth, you need more rest and more guys healthy.
I understand that.
Didn't the FCS just go to 32?
Well, they probably did because they need to make money.
Yeah, but it could also fall under the category of things that make you go,
Well, I will say at this point, 16 is enough for FBS. It's enough. Like at this point, stop expanding, leave it at 16 because, and with the new format, SEC, Big Ten, there's a proposal they're going to get 4 automatic bids each. Then the Big 12 gets 2, then the ACC gets 2, the G5 or G6 when the Pac-12 comes into the fold are going to get 1 altogether. And then you have 3 at-larges after that. So I did a little experiment during the week. Okay, so if we go by this format, in the SEC, you would have had Georgia, you would have had Texas, you would have had Tennessee, and then probably for that 4th team, it would have been Alabama.
Yes.
For the Big Ten, it would have been the same teams that were in it in this past playoff: Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana. And then, but the interesting thing where I got to it is like, okay, the Big 12, which was a 1-bid league, and after the whooping that Arizona State put on Iowa State in that Big 12 championship and ran them out of the Jerry Dome, everybody saw, okay, this is a 1-bid league. Well, not under this format. It's going to be a 2-bid league. So would you will likely put Iowa State and BYU based on the previous season's results. And in the ACC, you would have had Clemson, SMU, who made it out of that conference this past season. Then the 3 at-large bid would have went to Ole Miss,
Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame, because they don't play in a conference, which pisses a lot of Southerners off, but it's okay. Notre Dame, Ole Miss, South Carolina. So Miami would have been left out. And I understand they didn't have any top 25 wins and all that. I totally get it. But Miami would have been left out because of Iowa State, BYU, which I wouldn't even see them as a playoff team. So there's that flaw that I have with this. I feel like we're doing way too much. We're doing way too much with this. If we would have just tweaked what was left of the 12 format, bring it to the 16, which Notre Dame would be eligible for a bye, which it wouldn't matter in the 16-team playoff. But Notre Dame wouldn't have any restraints, and then you just take the 5 best conference champions and then just seed them as you see fit in the college football playoff rankings, and there you go. There's your problem. You play the games, you win the games, and you make your argument for 12 or 13 of them. I don't like this. Well, the SEC gets 4, the Big Ten gets 4. Because what if one season, and I promise I'll shut up here in a second and let you guys chime in, but what if one season there's 6 SEC teams that are national championship worthy, and then there's 3 Big Ten teams that are? You're telling me that a 4th place Illinois team is going to get a bid where one team that might be a little bit more worthy could be left out? That's the flaw. That's the problem that I see in this. And I like the 16 team playoff idea. I just don't like this proposed format because I feel like I'm a capitalist, free market man. You go out and you earn it.
But under your scenario, two of the 3 at larges go to those other 2 championship worthy SEC squads.
Right. But then again, what if there's 4 ACC teams that are worthy? One of them could be left out of that, but Illinois, who may not be the tier of that 4th ACC team, is going to get in the playoff while that other one gets left out. And listen, it could shift. Yeah, I believe the SEC this year probably has 6 teams this upcoming season that are probably going to be national championship contenders. In the Big Ten, I might see 3 or 4. And in the ACC,
are they going to resemble national championship contenders at the end of the season when they have beaten each other's brains out?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, yes or no? Yes. I mean, you can answer that yes or no, because
correct.
But go back. But go back to 2009, where the Big 12 South had 3 teams in the top 10. 3 teams in the top 10, and the Big 12 North was just complete cheeks. One of those teams got left out of a New Year's Six, and probably would have been worthy of a New Year's Six. So the thing about it is over time things could shift, and especially in this environment of college football. Will there be 4 teams good enough from the SEC eventually? Will there be 4 teams good enough from the Big Ten eventually? Will there be more than 2 in the ACC eventually? Will there be more than 2 in the Big 12? Will there be 2 in a group of 5? And I feel like this kind of constrains it, and that's what I don't like about it.
Well, the police is coming. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? The police was coming first. They pulled right up. I heard them pull right up. It must be at the home office. Or is the home office all right, Doug?
Everything's fine here. I thought you were saying they were at your house.
Oh, well, I hope they're not here. They're a big fat. They probably aggravated the hell out of me. But we'll be all good. I mean, it's not like I look like a hippie or anything. It
was at Ed's, wasn't it? Ed, is the police at your house?
I'm not getting blamed again.
Oh, again. So it must be at Sean's house. What's going on there, man?
No, everything's good here. It's quiet here.
Did y'all hear that? Was I the only one that heard the popo in the background?
No, I heard it. Somebody's watching the streets of San Francisco, aren't they?
Well, I was going to say I have spray foam insulation in my house, so pretty much an 18-wheeler could just drive right by the patio of my house, and I could hear it.
Awesome. Well, I'm in a greenhouse outside, and you can hear the crickets. Can y'all hear the crickets?
Yeah, yeah, that's where that's coming from. Okay, I thought my tinnitus was acting up again.
Hell yeah! Now, Sean, you haven't really chimed in on any of this. I'm really interested in what you got to say about it.
I tend to agree with Jay. I don't think guaranteed slots for any particular conference. If you set that in stone, to his point, if there's 5 great SEC teams and the Big Ten goes back to being what they usually have been, is the Big Two and the other dwarves, why give Illinois or an Iowa, or a Minnesota a guaranteed bid just because they're in that conference? I think that's ridiculous. I think conference champions, you're guaranteed. Everybody else, we're going to have to evaluate it regardless of what conference you play in and whatnot. So
I agree with Sean 100%.
And if the powers that be decide on it, it's just another notch in their belt of trying to basically ruin this sport that we all love, and they've been doing it since the early '90s, and they're eventually, to get back to the earlier discussion, they're eventually going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg here, by eliminating conferences and teams and upsets. One of the greatest games that we ever loved is the Boise State upset of Oklahoma. And eliminating that, and there's other upset. The Appalachian State over Michigan, et cetera, et cetera. But like eliminating this and becoming a Diet Coke version of the NFL, I don't think is the direction you want to go in. But money makes people fools at times, and we're watching it happen. As a news cycle with college football, it seems every few months or maybe every especially in the off season, it's just silliness. So
Look, there's two sayings, Sean. One of them is follow the money. The other one is lead, follow, or get out of the damn way. And it seems like the suits get in their own damn way so much. Okay, you want to expand the conference. You want to get as many lucrative teams and traditional, prestigious teams into your conference. And those prestigious programs want to get in the conferences where they make more money. I get that. But in the end, they painted themselves into a corner when, okay, all of a sudden the ACC is expanded to 17. The Big Ten's at 18. The SEC is at 16. But what they didn't realize, okay, let's eliminate divisions. And what they don't realize is they may have painted themselves into a corner to where you might have a four-way tie at the top. So how do we determine what the conference champion is? So
hell, not even how do we determine who the conference champion is? How do we determine who we put in the conference championship game?
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah.
We can't even figure that out at this point. Yeah.
It comes down to, it's almost like in Premier League where it's like the goals against margin or of coin flip or an average or something like that.
17th tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Or, we got tiebreakers on tiebreakers on tiebreakers. And if the moon is set, if the moon is a full moon on this night and a dog barks in the cornfield, it's this team. But if the dog doesn't bark, it's that team.
And I don't know if you guys heard about this or not, but like the proposal of, okay, if the first place team if they are outright, they win the conference, they're considered the conference champion without the conference, championship game, and then you're going to have like a play-in conference game for like the third or fourth place teams or whatever. Which, don't get me wrong, it might there might be a little bit of excitement there, but it's almost kind of like, okay, this is like the play-in for like EFL 2 third and fourth place teams to see who gets that final bid into EF1 in European soccer, which, soccer fans, you may get that reference.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
But not everybody does. It's all the way up.
It's the money, like you said, because if you wanted to do that, the way to do that is then reduce the regular season games. So then those games would be games 11 and 12, and then you'd finally get it boiled down to your two that could be in the conference. But that's not going to happen.
Right.
No, because then you'd
be giving away money. You're taking money off the table.
Yes.
And so what are you going to do? Add two more games? Well, now you're talking, 19 games? I mean, that's basically the NFL at this point.
It's just, it's one of these instances. It's like, I'll throw another saying out here. It was fire, ready, aim. Like, that's kind of how I feel like this was all kind of put together. It's just, okay, we're going to fire the shot, then we'll aim it, and then now we're ready. It's like a constant painting themselves in the corner. Now, granted, they're probably going to make a little bit more money off of this, which was probably the initial goal to begin with. But what I'm interested in seeing in the next couple of years, because like I could even see this with the Big 12, the ACC, and even like the Group of Five schools eventually. Now, granted, they may be forced to agree to this. I don't think they would willfully agree to this kind of proposal. It's almost kind of like they were forced to. But I'm wondering years down the road if there could be maybe an attempt at an antitrust lawsuit on this. Because if a good ACC team gets left out because there's not enough at-large bids, and there were two ACC teams that were good enough to get the automatic bids, but a team that was good enough gets left out because, well, there wasn't an at-large bid for them because you got to give 2 to the Big 12, 4 to the SEC, 4 to the Big 10, and then 1 to the Group of Five. I'm wondering down the road if this is going to eventually lead to potentially some kind of antitrust lawsuit.
Yeah, you would think so, for sure. I mean, if this happens enough years where these conferences are not the Big Ten or the SEC have good enough teams and they're getting left out on a regular basis, I think that's
the moral of the story is reward your conference champions and just let the market play out.
Yeah.
We did it in the BCS, we did it in the 14 playoff, we did it last year in the 12-team playoff, and then we can do it in the 16-team playoff. And if you're number 17 and you're trying to make an argument, which really, based on this format, you might be able to, because I just want everything to play out. And then if number 17 standing out there, it's like, well, you shouldn't have lost that game by 21 to a 6-16, which would likely be the scenario. In this format, not so much.
I agree.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I like that. It's like Monty Python thinking about tiebreakers upon tiebreakers upon tiebreakers stacking up, right? They're going to whoever's pinky went the furthest, And it's just amazing. That's why I can't wait for the season to really start. I want to just see people run around like Lawrence Taylor and chasing people down like dogs. I really want to see that. But I think if they congregate all them at the same place, it's going to kind of be like the 60s all over again. We're all teams like Alabama have all the players, and only a select few teams have all the players, and everybody else is lagging behind. So, I mean, it's all how much money they're willing to spend and how much they can raise. I mean, to me, it's real complex, all the different ways they can raise money and distribute it. And I don't know. There's going to be some kind of standard or something. Like, it's going to be something that makes sense for everybody involved. And I'm just thinking about, you can play college football and never get drafted. You could milk it for 5 years, maybe even 6, right? And get paid an NFL salary. You could come out of there for, say, total somewhere between $10 and $20 million and never get drafted.
And right now, you could play 2 years of JUCO and then have 4 years of eligibility at Division I level. So you could play.
I'm the only one who loves this kind of wild, wild west scenario. I think it's great. I love it, and I love that people are getting bent out of shape about however much money, if they want to. It goes back to the point that was made in. We've all watched the 30 for 30 on SMU, right?
Yep.
And the reason wasn't because they were paying guys and nobody else in the old Southwest Conference wasn't doing that. They all were doing that. The difference was SMU was paying the right guys. They were paying players that could play, that were winners. I mean, TCU was put on probation a number of times, and their records were like 4-6. 3-7, So to me, you still got to evaluate the players for not only their skill and ability, but if they're going to fit in your program. I mean, think of it this way: baseball is in a similar kind of. People love to raise, holy hell about, the Dodgers can pay this much and the Yankees can pay. Yankees haven't won a World Series since 2009, and it's 2025, and they're habitually in the top 3 of payroll every year. So you have to get the right people, players, coaches, support staff, the whole nine. So I right now I think it's fun, and I think the parody of seeing an SMU finally get back into the playoffs. I know they lost at Penn State, but and other programs like Kentucky, who's to say? Kentucky's got plenty of money in that alumni fan base. Go out and get you some players.
And I like it too. But the other thing that you have to think about, and going back to about what you said earlier, like the big upsets of Boise State over the Appalachian states, but you have programs like Tulane that are just kind of like on the cusp. Like they're on the cusp of that group of 5 bid. Like they're almost there, or they were almost there. How they'll do without Dorian Mensah is still to be determined. But
I personally think the Big 12 should invite him in. I think that would be a great addition to that conference. That gets you a footprint in Louisiana and New Orleans, which is a great American city. And 2, that helps Tulane because that'll get them more money to help their programs.
Well, might as well, because the conferences are already too big for my liking anyway. But if down the road, if we continue down the trajectory that we're doing now, and my cynicism says that there's probably not going to be anything that's probably going to be ironed out. 3 to 5 years to me is generous. I think it'll be longer than that, because we know that Congress moves like molasses. And then, of course, if they pass anything, will it get challenged in court? Will it legally hold up with the Supreme Court? So on and so forth. That's something you have to consider as well. But if we continue down this path for the programs like the Troys, the Tulanes, and these group of 5, and even like the new ones that are coming up, like Missouri State is coming up to FBS. Kennesaw State is made the FBS jump not too long ago. And there's probably other FCS schools that are probably chomping at the bit to eventually make that jump. Would they be able to survive if we continue years upon years upon years of this trajectory? That's been a question that's been thrown out there. Will this eventually kill off some of those smaller programs?
There might be a second tier. There might be a second tier of grassroots football that's regional in nature that still has a huge fan base, and it may get to where this is all under a paywall, and everyday fans can't really watch their teams, and they'll go back to an era of, like, say, me rooting for Marshall because I can actually get them on the TV and the radio without paying, stuff like that. It might create two different football cultures. They're independent but related to each other. I find that very interesting because one of the things that accounts for is poverty, right? And who gets to see it. And one of the lessons of that is in the 70s, boxing was at an all-time high. And why was boxing at an all-time high? Because it was on Wild World of Sports that you could get across your stinking rabbit ears for free. And it was narrated by the greatest commentators of the time, specifically Howard Cosell, and you had great stars like Muhammad Ali and Frazier and Foreman and on and on. So people got to see that, including me, and became boxing fans. I saw the Thriller in Manila. Right? I saw all those fights, and I'm live on TV.
Bob, did you see the Quaker in Jamaica? That was from a movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's apropos right now. I climbed a Big Tit Mountain once. I'll say that it was a similar situation. You know what I'm saying? And they so aborted once actually, but they but anyway, so that's what I'm saying about college football.
I mean,
so college
we're
football
kind of already there, Bob. We're kind of already at a paywall situation. I mean, other than the 1 or 2 games you'll get on ABC. Maybe you'll get Notre Dame on NBC. You get a Big Ten game in the afternoon on CBS, and then if your rabbit ears are strong enough, you get a good Fox signal. You get big noon kickoff. That's your 4 games if you don't pay for anything else.
Yeah, I read somewhere there were ESPN. I think it's going to eventually roll out.
I forgot one. CW is going to air the Pac conference games as well. So if you get CW, which is over the air, so you get 5 games. Sorry, go ahead,
Jason. Are you talking about the new ESPN app coming?
Yes, and when it happens, No offense, DirecTV stream, but bye-bye.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any live TV right now because we don't really watch live TV in the off season like this. But I won't. Typically, I've had to get Sling or something.
Live TV. It cost me a fortune.
No, it's going to be $25 to $30, and I believe everything will come with it.
The crazy thing is that okay, so my DirecTV stream, the DirecTV stream that I have, is $104 a month, and I'm the only one who watches it. My wife watches Hulu. My stepson, all he does is watch YouTube and PewDiePie and whoever the fuck. But or Kai Cenat on Twitch or whatever. I've actually started watching a little bit more Twitch now with some of these like gamers and stuff like that. It's an interesting world. I'll just leave it at that. But see, I have free Peacock with my internet subscription at least for another year. So I have the Big Ten, Notre Dame, and WWE covered from that standpoint. And the only thing that I have that I just need to get ESPN, SEC Network, and all of those. And but for that, put it at $30 a month with all of our streaming service packages.
That's the highest it's going to be. So
then that's fine with me. I'm actually happy. It's better than paying $110 a month.
Oh, absolutely.
Which the only channels I've really watched are ESPN, Comedy Central, and I DVR SmackDown and AEW, and maybe catch some hockey on TNT.
Well, the truth is, if you still want a little bit more of that stuff, then all you would really have to do is just get the ESPN app and then get. There's another one that don't have any sports. Philo.
Philo. Well, I was going to say for a while, like HBO Max didn't have sports, but now they're starting to have sports because they're part of that Time Warner Discovery and TNT and TBS and all that. So a lot of like even AEW I could get on HBO Max if I renewed my subscription. You get NBA and the NHL, so on and so forth. Apple TV has Major League Baseball, and it's all very, very convoluted. So I understand why Ted Cruz kind of wants to work to consolidate it. Do I have any faith that he will probably make any headway? Probably not, but I understand it. But over time, things change. I mean, I remember the days of the old rabbit ears and the black and white television and watching the Bills and Dolphins on Sunday afternoon in my grandmother's living room while I'm chowing down on chicken tenders and Velveeta shells and cheese with a Dr. Pepper on the side. I remember those days, and then they were great. But over time, as we've seen, everything has evolved when it comes to television. Why? Because they realize the people who own these intellectual properties can make a little bit more money off of it and have a little bit more exclusive liberty to it, if that makes sense.
I hate the SEC network, and I'm going to tell you why. As a Kentucky fan, every one of our games was televised, whether it was on Jefferson Pilot, whether it was the game of the week on CBS, football and basketball. And if they weren't, and even sometimes concurrently, they were broadcast locally out of Lexington on the Kentucky Sports Network with our own guys commentating it. Whoever was, whether it was Tom Leach or going back further to Kaywood Ledford, our guys giving you play-by-play, our camera guys, our game, and all that was free. Well, it wasn't that it was free. If you had, let's just say you had basic cable, you could see every possible Kentucky game. But what happened, the SEC network became another tier of internet. So that forces me to go from just having Hulu, for example, to having live Hulu. And now it goes from $17 a month to $100, and that can be a lot of pressure for people, and that's why I'm really getting it. And the SEC network, I remember the very first football preview on SEC network. The entire thing, I watched it all the way through, almost 3 hours. Right? They went through the whole broadcast, and right near the end of it, I realized that they weren't going to mention Kentucky at all. Now, was Kentucky pathetic then? Yes, it was. Jacob Phillips was the coach. It was awful. They should have said it was disastrous, right? But they never even mentioned Kentucky. And I call in and I get through. So I get through on the phone, and you have to call the Feinbaum. I had no idea who Paul Feinbaum was, guys. I can't deny it. I had no idea who Paul Feinbaum was. Who is this guy, right?
And you got
And
into an
anyway,
argument with him, didn't you, Bob?
although his staffer, right? He's on there. So I think, guys,
Yeah.
I said, you got a whole region paying for a whole other tier of cable to get something they used to get the 3 for free, and you can't talk about Kentucky. He goes, so what's your point? I said, you don't listen to my point. My point is millions of people are now paying more money to get what they used to get for free, right? And now now we got to watch this, and you don't even mention it. Well, you don't have no point. And then they hung up on me. And I've tried to get through to Paul Feinbaum ever since then. On it, even though he does put my tweets go across the bottom line nearly every day. If you watch them, right, they go across there, and it's at Bobby Arthur at what is it now? It's not Twitter anymore, X.com. But anyway, so they so that's the big deal for me. So I have to pay a whole lot extra money to see my team. And then I have to, and it's great that I can watch all the SEC teams and get all their talk about it. But it's saturated with talk, right? I'd rather listen to the 8 a.m. radio and hear our homers talk about it, right? They'll like to be better, right? So these guys, it's great that they're national personalities and all that, but it's just not worth it to me. And sooner or later, I don't want the new. I tried the ODSPN app. It only shows you certain games, but I would, if I could just pay them $20 a month and watch all the games, I'd be happy as hell.
No, you're gonna have to pay him $30, Bob. That's it.
I'd do that. If that's it, I could come.
Well, it's coming. It's starting in, I believe, it's going to debut in August.
Right around football season. Yeah.
Yeah, I watch Fubo. I got all kinds of shit for free on my Roku TV that I can watch endless old Star Trek episodes, The World at War, timestamps on BBC. I could do all the shit that I wanted with that. And if I just had ESPN so I could see the damn games and then use the internet, because guys, that's the new media, is the internet. Somehow this stuff is going to break through, and we're just going to go here, and Non-Doc Thong from Vietnam is going to post it on YouTube, and as long as it's up, I'm going to watch it for free. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And the internet wins every time, and I think in the end, savvy people are going to use the internet to follow their sports just like they get their news on social media.
You gotta love piracy, but you did mention Paul Feinbaum, so I'm going to take you back to 2008, I believe it was. My first ever SEC media days that I got to attend as a member of the media when I was a producer for an afternoon show in Huntsville, Alabama. Well, I was almost kind of like considered like the wrangler, the gopher. I was going and trying to get players, coaches for interviews, which I may have told you the story of the first time I ever shook Nick Saban's hand and I felt like he was staring into my soul. But there was one instance where I had a little bit of time and I really had to go to the bathroom really, really bad. So where our booth was not that far from WJOX's booth in Birmingham. And I had to go like really, really bad. So I'm like trying to navigate like through the sea of people just to get to the bathroom at the front lobby of the Winfrey Hotel in Hoover, Alabama. And I accidentally bumped shoulders with this very old, skinny, lanky looking dude. And I looked back and I got the biggest go to hell look I'd ever gotten in my life. It was my bad. I mean, I was just like, listen, I had to piss. I didn't think about it. I was like, I just went, my fault. He gave me and somebody I knew was like, that's Paul Feinbaum. I was like, oh, that's a good first impression for me to have, is to bump into Paul Feinbaum and him give me the biggest go to hell look I've been given in my life.
You know,
great job, Jason.
I actually seen him at a hospital one time, and I guess I was looking at him because I was like, shit, that's Paul Feinbaum. And you could tell he was uncomfortable. He kept looking over at me, and he was probably like, oh, fuck, this is a pissed off fan. This is a pissed off fan. I hung up on him this week, and he's going to fucking try to come fuck with me. But it wasn't nothing like that. I was just like, I was in awe.
Yeah, and that was the other thing too. Paul probably doesn't remember it. He's probably bumped shoulders with other peons like myself. But I just remember that memory. I was like, I can go back and tell my friends. It's like, yeah,
he's probably had people fuck with him in public a little bit. So that may have been his demeanor. Is like, oh shit.
And this was also like 2008 too. So this was like 17 years ago when I was a young pup.
2008, yeah, he was like, God damn, it's a pissed off Auburn fan.
Or he was
what
probably.
Would you say my ball weight? Maybe 125.
Probably.
He is a little guy. It was
probably a little bit more than that, because I will say, let's see, 2008, I was probably 25, 26 years old. And at that time, I probably weighed about 130, 135. And like, I didn't like knock him over. Like, his shoulder didn't like or anything like that. It was almost kind of like a neutral it was almost kind of like a mutual collision in a way. So I was like, I would say he's probably a little more than 125 if I were to guess.
You know, one of the things about playing football is forever, my whole life, if like somebody bumps me or they come in on me and I kind of sit on my peripheral, I'm gonna go, I want to stiff arm the fuck out. I'm taking them to the ground and keep on rolling, brother. I can't help myself. I got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? They or make a little juke move, try to get out of their way or some shit like that. And but I've done that in the crowd. I went to see Monsters of Rock in 1987 in Germany, and it was a huge crowd. And it was the main act was Deep Purple, and it was Dio and Metallica and a few other bands. And anyway, a long time ago. So I'm going through the crowd, and there's like 280,000 people there. I'm trying to fight my way to the front as general music admission and stuff. And somebody comes up and hits my shoulder, and I stiff arm right into the mud. Jam, bam, right? Then I make kind of like a little juke move so his buddies couldn't get me. And then you never go nowhere in a foreign country when you're a soldier unless you're at least 4 or 5 deep with people you're truly tight with. So that way, if they acted the fool, then the gigantic black dude behind me that was one of my best friends could lay him out, right? So anyway, so that's how we rode, right? And I just had that reaction. And then combat does that to you too, you know? So for me, if I had that happen, it'd have been awful. I probably would have stiff-armed that little motherfucker right in the ground.
You'd have to fuck him up when you bump.
I'd have fucked him, but I wouldn't really.
You would have ended Paul Feinbaum, and you would have never even got a chance to call into a show, would you?
Oh yeah. See, I was in practice playing basketball, and I was trying to dunk over this black dude named Ed Reed. It was fucking incredible, dude. Played for Okeechobee, and I just, I mean, I'm telling you, it's beyond luck. It was all time, and not that I'm athletic enough to beat Reggie Rember, but I just cut him a little bit and went in between him and went up to dunk over Ed Reed, who was the same size as me, but I weighed about 170 and he weighed about 200, and he wasn't up a muscle. So I go up to dunk by him, and another guy, Michael Burtz, so he comes over and undercuts me, smack, and go straight down to the damn ground. So after that, I was watching them guys. If I even come close to them, I'd stick a knee out or stiff arm them motherfuckers or whatever. And
dunk.
So that's how you got to think, man. So Jason, you have way more. I have to say, you have way more self-control than I do, because just on pure reflex, I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Well, and just trust me.
By the time he is 60, he'll be telling the story that he kicked that motherfucker right in his nuts and brought him down to his knees.
I will if my stepson ever has any kids, I will tell the step grandchildren that I gave him Sweet Chin Music, Shawn Michaels style. That's what I'll even tune up the band before then.
All right. Has anybody else got anything to say before we hang up on everybody?
Ed. Sean.
Good. No, I'm good. Countdown till football.
I do have one thing to say. Everybody like, subscribe, share, join the groups, enjoy the show. Thank you for watching Smack Off the Podcast.
Yeah, and if you're not going to do that, then kiss our ass, right?
That's right.
Later, y'all.
Smacking off the podcast. Fuck your city, our boss. You call sports authorities.
Thank you for supporting Smacking Off the Podcast. Make sure to stream in every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for an all-new live cast.